Venerable Geshe Tsultim
Let us cultivate the aspiration seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. With that kind of altruistic motivation, we call Bodhita Motivation, or with Bodhisattva's attitude, that we should all participate in this teaching. I believe that those of us who follow the path of greater vehicle Buddhism or Mahayana, we work for the betterment of both self and others, but so to speak more for the sake of others. And how we do that is by developing attitudes which are for the benefit of other sentient beings. We engage in spirituality wishing all others to be free from their suffering and wishing others to find happiness. So we consider others as more important than self, and with such attitudes we pursue our spiritual development. It's not just enough for us to simply wish all other sentient beings to be free from suffering or to be happy. Of course, what is essential in cultivating those attitudes, if you will, basically we are talking about cultivating great compassion and great love, is to be unbiased towards all sentient beings. There's nobody among sentient beings that could be excluded from our thoughts. And having said that, it's not simply enough for us to wish them to be free from suffering and wish them to be happy. What really goes with those attitudes is to cultivate the sense of responsibility. That is, that I would like to take upon myself the responsibility to fulfill those visions, if you will, that I would like to help sentient beings to be free from suffering, and I would like to help sentient beings to find happiness. So that sense of responsibility, the willpower is also essential part of spiritual cultivation. So at the beginning, when we cultivate the altruistic motivation or Bodhita Motivation, basically what we are stating in our motivation is that we would sincerely wish all sentient beings to be free from suffering and to find happiness. And towards those ends, we are seeking our own enlightenment as a means to fulfill those ends. And we make a commitment, because cultivating altruistic motivation involves making a commitment that I would like to strive to accomplish complete enlightened state in order to benefit all other sentient beings. Now, why is that important? If you say, why must we strive to accomplish our own enlightenment in order to benefit others? It's very understandable that so long as we remain unenlightened, then it's really hard to help others to be enlightened. So it seems to make sense that in order to be able to help others to be enlightened, it is really important that first one must, become enlightened. The point that is to be remembered here is, in order to bring about ultimate benefit, the utmost and ultimate benefit to all sentient beings, it is essential for one to become enlightened first. Otherwise, of course, it's really understandable that even as ordinary beings, we could help others in different ways. So we don't have to be necessarily enlightened to be able to help others, or even on the spiritual paths and grounds. There are bodhisattvas on different spiritual grounds or levels, and so they are able to do, great benefits to others, even though they are not yet enlightened beings. The point I'm trying to make here is why it's really important to become enlightened, first to benefit others is to bring about the utmost and the ultimate benefits to other sentient beings. Let me give you an example to illustrate my point. Let's imagine that if we are with a group of people and somehow we all fall into a dungeon, deep dungeon. Well, because we are all in the same situation, it would rather be very hard for us to pull each other out of the dungeon. So the one who can really help us to get out of this predicament is someone who is not in the dungeon, but who is outside the dungeon, who could help us. So this is what we are talking about. In order to be able to benefit sentient beings in the utmost and ultimate way, we must seek our enlightenment first.
And pen turned up Tanghama to get that Tansanda in Tondoguyorwa, that Rigugu Amarchi, Bennett and the Tango Yamarwa. In Anhamata, Shin, Penna Chilipan Duki, Ranta King, Drogo Yana, and the Troyapu Tango, Turkey Gugu. That teller, Tutelane, Tahana Yigate, Timbi Lunta, Bretta, I let the Benachi go to what they. That is the losing Reda. Says that. That day I read the Benedict Yabatang de Yamatale Lung, Timbi Lunta Jani, Condrosatele, Timbi Lunta Jani Machina, and a little Yamaravas. Then Nayika. A little patent.
So one of the important points that I'm trying to make here is the need to cultivate flotsam, the willpower or the special thought, literally translating it, which involves a sense of responsibility that we take upon ourselves in order to, help sentient beings in the greatest possible ways. And this sense of responsibility or this willpower is an essential quality to have for us to be able to reach our ultimate spiritual destination. And this has been really made clear by great Tibetan master Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa or Rinpoche. And as Geshe started to quote the relevant lines from his memory. And Rinpoche used the metaphor of sail, to talk about some special willpower of a thought, the sense of responsibility. And so before we really talk about what special willpower is, I think let me just explain the metaphor itself. In olden days, in order to be able to, say, cross a big river or body of water, you need a boat, and a boat is has to depend on a sail. And and not only that, the boat must have really a strong sail, but the wind must be favorable for the sailing. If wind is in the right direction flowing, then you will be able to sail smoothly towards the island of jewels, if you will. Of course, these days, the boats are run by the engines and everything, so that's a different story altogether. So as important as sail is for the boat in those good old days to cross the water, in the same way, the special willpower, flotsam, the determination, special determination is very important to, as we push ourselves in the direction of enlightenment.
That means the flotsam number tabit hachin says the Tartinaye, Flagway Samba said the Yimping Samba, that Yimping Samba, Yimping Samba, that the Alindi cups, Yimping Samba. That's a number Tabachu race, Yimping Samba number Tabachu race, has a number tabit hachin shot. Jundu have a lungish, Tartu Yabatan do that Timbi Lunta Majana, Lumena and it couldn't go marry. Tinsani, things and that rank, Jundu Tommy Timbi Luna, that deny Jundu have a bit downgrace. Jundu have a lungish. To some going to be Tuzin than Tuzin the any turba the samba the one be Hirosung to that to Zeni. That did to some goes to Hirosung with the Trodikiwashi. That truth upon Roya Shevala, President Roya Shevala, and Karate, and a Timpi Lung de Jani, Tarki Google, Hasangu, Tardish. That deal on it, Jundu Lava Mapper, Jundu Zanta, Clever Mapper, Anita, Lung de Jani, and Roganai, and League Googles.
So Geshe Rinpoche has got this to say, that just as a sailor would need a good boat and good sail to be able to go to the distant jewel island to fetch jewel, and it's not enough to have a good boat and a sail, but also needs the favorable wind, that blows in the right direction, so that you will, not be carried astray, but you will really go, get into the right direction. In the same way, for practitioners to land on the island of enlightenment, if you will, we have to ride on the boat of listening, contemplation, and meditation, or study, reflection and meditation. This is the kind of boat we need. This is the kind of boat we should ride. And this boat must have the sail of altruism, which involves special determination, taking responsibility upon oneself to benefit all other sentient beings. Now, again, that's not enough. We also need to generate the power of enthusiastic perseverance, so that just as the wind needs to be favorable for the sailing, in the same way, we need the power of enthusiastic perseverance to be able to sail ourselves to the island of enlightenment. So enthusiasm is just like that favorable wind that can blow us into, that can facilitate us in, to move in the right direction towards enlightenment.
Tatepan Dorjee those cubing, Ane Luchi Nams that Senje Tamji, COVID nearly drove a Sheval Garugusana, and the rank that no Sheval Garugusana, to some consumke, Herosum Tarangiling about the Shepherd you go, truth and driving.
Okay, so what are we really talking about here is this, that, sentient beings who want to be free from, suffering, what they really need to be able to go to the state of freedom from suffering, they need to cultivate the three types of wisdom which arise from listening to teaching, contemplation, and meditation. Those three types of wisdom need to be cultivated in order to get out of suffering and get to one's spiritual destination. So for sentient beings to be free from the ocean of samsara, cyclical existence, we need to cultivate those three types of wisdom. Wisdom arising from listening to teaching, wisdom arising from contemplating the meaning of the teaching, wisdom arising from meditating on the ascertained meaning of the teaching.
That truly, to some goes to the damn that till Karigusana, Annie, Tela Annie, they Flassam, Jundu Leva to some goes with Heroes with the Rangishabi in Annie, Jundu Leva Map, and that longer, to the longer, Annie, Jim Machivish, Sugar, and Nayi Kase. The Jundu Leva Machita go somewhere else.
So in order to have those three types of wisdom and to be able to further those wisdoms, we need to generate enthusiasm consistently. So the power of enthusiastic perseverance is, likened to that favorable wind, which is necessary for a smooth sailing.
Pasal number tapitaya, Lape Sambasiate, Yempe sent to us, Yempe Sambat, Nepa to go at the gate chamber, Tambodi.
So where it all starts, it's important for us to cultivate, the altruistic attitude is key to, get out of cyclical existence and find enlightenment.
Tar Yembe Sambasiate, Ane Dash, Shebachim Touch, and you Samanamchi, any Rang Turnley, Yange Turn, Slapati, Zini. Rando Yani Yende 다 간대기는 최종 간대기는 될 점배셔버들 연편이 삼바세 학회 삼바세.
Bodhisattvas, have this kind of attitude, which is called altruistic attitude, that involves considering others' betterment as more important than the betterment of self. So the Tibetan term laksam, lak has a sense of, which is translated as special thought, but more in the sense of, sense of more importance or extraordinary. So what is extraordinary about Bodhisattva's attitude is that they consider others more important than self, and therefore others' betterment is more important than self. So that kind of attitude is really extraordinary. It's not an ordinary attitude. It is extraordinary. So therefore it is called laksam, extraordinary thought, or we simply usually translate as special thought or altruism.
Yenji tendo samno tangni, changwa tangni, ta yichu sheben ta ranga kandisi yungres, sang the west.
So the point we're trying to make here is, in whatever type of actions we engage in, small or big, we should ground ourselves in that kind of a thought, extraordinary thought, or caring about others, thinking about, others' betterment. Now, you might, kind of raise this kind of question that, if I do everything for others, then what about my own welfare? Who takes care of that? How does that work out?
That is, rang the yender source in the yender chambers dropping round it,
But this is the beauty of, or the secret, if you will, of course, I didn't use those expressions, of cultivating those extraordinary attitude. That when we really dedicate ourselves genuinely more for the benefit of others, because that's our primary concern, then our own, affairs, if you will, or the welfare is taken care of, just by the way, indirectly. So when we really dedicate ourselves for the betterment of others, we are also able to take care of ourselves just along the way.
That is, rang any turned up any yen pa those so ye dropping in a ranting and so lady can do was.
And this game, that
no. Yen so drugger was punch. Chili drugger was. So me at the miss at the any yen driver to the park chili dryer. No some of the truth down in a ranting and driving and so lady can do it, then 90 years.
So let me give you this example how one's own, betterment is taken care of along the way as we, benefit and work for others. Let's think of a sailor or one who drives a boat. Well, the main concern of this person may be, okay, I want to help these other people to get to the other side of the water. So you just take on everybody on the boat and you drive the boat or you sail the boat, whatever the case may be. But when you get everybody else on the other side of the shore, well, you're also there too. You see, you reach on the other shore as well. You're not left on the opposite side of the water because you're the one who are carrying everybody in the boat and go to that side.
아니 글로벌 람치 네컵스 아니 예 장바 마토 라운드 산 삼이야 말이 이나야 대콩 대우스니다 라나메 바얀도 산시 공바 토사야레 나란주 라운드 짱산네 인데 마삼베시 라운드 짱산다 나란주 리셋단다 코에니 단 리딘도 와스 아니 산지 겸딘디가 아니 인데 짱산바 인자니 다디 이니 베 데이 톱지 아니 라운드 요스 존도 와스
In the Buddhist literature, it's really clearly stated that we should simply look at the difference between our historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, where he is, and where we are, and then that difference should tell us the whole story. In other words, that at certain point of time in his previous lifetimes, Shakyamuni Buddha, he brought about this complete attitudinal transformation within himself. He said, okay, I'm not going to work for my selfish interest anymore. I'm going to let go completely that selfishness, and I'm going to dedicate myself altruistically for the benefit of all other sentient beings. So with that kind of extraordinary thought, he pursued the path, and he became a complete enlightened person called Buddha. That's where he is. That's who he is. Whereas, we were there with the Buddha, in his previous lifetimes, but we have remained, locked, if you will, in our own selfish mentality and self-centeredness. So we didn't let go our self-centeredness, and we are very preoccupied most of the time, our own self-welfare. And now we can look at ourselves and look at the Buddha and see where we are and where he is, So that will tell the story.
No. That is it. That Lasam Yavas in Mares, Kari Gogresan, and Tesam goes to Sheriff Sunki, Ranjili Shevchagre, Tevekera, Sambi, Gombe Kerate, Ranjili Shevchagres Kanang the was.
So it's not just enough to cultivate or generate altruistic attitude or extraordinary thought. What is also needed to be able to move towards, if you will, enlightened state is to cultivate the three types of wisdom arising from listening to teaching, contemplation, and meditation.
No. That Teva said, Teva Mount Teva Jugu, Kaisa, they told the Gardesana, then you sum rita, then you sum, long then you sum secret, Doa Mount Teva. Remember Mount Teva, though they Mount Tevas. That's a social that the Lojo Shane, any rank any the Javati, Sunyambata, rank in the Pegandus, Chambas in the rank Zombata, Tunzula and Teve Herabstak, Marie Teve Herashe Tabris.
So we need to listen extensively to teachings. What of teachings we are talking about here? Of course, listen to what, if you ask. In other words, we have to listen to teachings on the three three baskets of teachings or tripitakas. And in other words, the basket of discourses, basket of ethical discipline, and basket of knowledge. So that's why we need to listen extensively to the basket of discourses, to the basket of wisdom, to the basket of ethical discipline, and by listening extensively to teachings contained in the three Buddhist corpus, if you will. The basket is a metaphor, but Buddhist canons, that we are able to cultivate wisdom that arises from listening to teaching. So in modern sense, it's also listening to teaching and studying the Buddhist canons.
Dan doa mandi teba ngani sheni, that the Geshes, Toba Karishiguru Sena, and Lavatsurin Javaranji Shegu.
So what's the point of listening to the Buddhist canons, if you will? Let's say if you listen to, the canon of ethics, then the realization we gain from that is that we, abide by, different ethics provided in Buddhism.
So that the any that Chiba Minabandabi Ane Surimge Payontan, and the nation that Lava Surinja Lava Tempitan, though that you can in a tail, Frozen Shaving, that Migi later. Her Sabbath Park, Mavazoyate, Tava Shayatan, Sadum Masak, Jinke Agata, Ane Karsagota, and Digane, Shebajita,
Even as lay practitioners, if we study those relevant canons relating to Buddhist ethics, relevant to lay people, because that's what we're talking about. Because, anyway, forget about putting a footnote here. So as through such study or listening or teaching, then we started to understand the importance of abiding by such ethics, and as we do that, then we started to refrain from negativities, and we find ourselves pursuing positive and right actions. So those are really essential for part of our spiritual practice and essential for spiritual development. If one were to listen extensively to the Buddhist canon on wisdom, we call Abhidharma Pitaka, then one started to develop more understanding about different aspects of wisdom, and then started to get interested and cultivate, for example, the wisdom realizing selflessness or emptiness as it is. And if we listen extensively to Buddhist canon on what called discourses or Sutra Pitaka, then we really get more understanding of cultivating what is known as higher concentration or samadhi. Ane lam haba sumse ranjuli she goyaka ta lam haba sumse dosi haba churumji haba tingin jilaba haba kereji haba sini haba sumse dosi So often, we talk about the need to cultivate three higher trainings, in Tibetan called labasum, trainings within our mind. And these three higher trainings are training in higher ethics or morality, shila, training in higher concentration or samadhi, and training in higher wisdom. And so we're able to, train ourselves in those different levels of practices if we listen extensively to the Buddhist canons on those topics. So the three baskets of the Buddhist canons are like container. They explicate the three higher trainings. So does anyone think that, okay, now I have not been able to really, study the Buddhist canons or the three baskets? Is anybody thinking that thought? But I don't think one has to be very fixated about that kind of thought. Oh my gosh, I have not had of time or have never engaged in the study of Buddhist canons. Because the fact of the matter is that Buddha has given innumerable teachings, and all his teachings have to do with the practices of three higher trainings that I just mentioned. So the point I'm trying to make here is, if we really study and listen to any of Buddha's teachings, so that teaching is a part of the three part of the three Buddhist canons or the three baskets, and their subject matters constitute the three higher trainings. For example, Lamrim teaching or teaching on the graded path to enlightenment, or we simply call Lamrim, is a genre in Tibetan Buddhism which presents the complete structure of the path to enlightened state. It is a practical guide, so to speak. But Lamrim teaching contains the subject matters of three Buddhist canons.
Geshes lava sumta, lang lava sumta, ane Geshes tseki shiki yina, dene sumshidana kadu korampa, ta shenki yina lansa ta dinna mandupa chiyama te hakong godes.
And if we know how to look at things and figure out, most of the Buddhist, literatures or the texts, if you look in within those things, you can find maybe it emphasizes more one of the three higher trainings or the other, but basically you will be able to see the connections and the relevance and of the three higher trainings, and deals with these subjects.
So another
thing mentioned in the earlier is that it's very important for us to generate enthusiastic perseverance, chundu, enthusiastic joy, and that's important to reach enlightened state. So why is enthusiastic perseverance so important is that every kind of small and big quality or spiritual quality included that we cultivate is an outcome of enthusiastic effort or enthusiastic perseverance. Great Indian master Acharya Chandrakirti, in his supplement to the middle way or Madhyamik avatar states, and Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, where he says that Yönden Malu, every kind of knowledge and quality, basically, goes after or follows enthusiastic perseverance. So basically what he's saying is that if we want to cultivate certain knowledge or quality, that has to be an outcome of enthusiastic effort. So it's important for all of us to cultivate enthusiastic perseverance or effort, but then to be able to do that, it's also important for us to understand the opposite of enthusiastic effort. Because the opposite of enthusiastic effort is a major obstacle or enemy for us us as spiritual practitioners, because it really obstructs us. It hinders us from cultivating spirituality. So what do you think is that, the opposite of enthusiastic effort? Are you thinking like, okay, so that must, could it be, those kind of people who are kind of wild and crazy and who, have guns in their hands, or like maybe some just kind of spring out of the jungles with the bows and arrows in hand, and maybe those are those are the opponents or the opposites of enthusiastic effort. What do you think?
And that didn't matter. Chenduke Minti showed the Rancho Tap, pay Candiors, the Yoris, that thing until you did, Rancho Julius.
Of course, the opposite of enthusiastic effort is none of those things, but it's something inside each of us, and I think we have quite a lot of it, as a matter of fact, if we look within ourselves. So the point I'm trying to make is it's something inside our mind. It's not out there, so don't try to find it out there. It's not out there. It is inside us. So if we want to use our finger to point at it, so we cannot point a finger outwardly as if it exists over there. We have to bend the finger inward and point at ourselves because it is, in us. So what is it, if you ask? It is what we call laziness. In Tibetan, it's called lelo. It already has a negative connotation. It's lethargy, lelo, lazy.
Oh, yeah. That lelo tell some you are bus. Just around somebody can't yours. Now never see your country. Lelo somebody around Ane drum depata. Ane Duyala, Ane Jintin drum depata. Ane drum pata. So laziness is a multi-dimensional, concept or a state of mind. In other words, what I mean to say is there are different types of laziness. It's not just one kind. So if it's one kind, maybe not too bad. But there are three types of laziness, and we are quite rich, with those three types of laziness. And basically, these different types of laziness, what they do is, in certain cases, they, in the first place, they do not let us pursue spirituality. Or that, they may even facilitate forgetting about spirituality, or that, they, in the middle of the practice, they just kind of interrupt and disturb the continuity of our practice. So laziness, in different shapes and forms are obstacles to our spiritual development. 당보들 안에 지록 빌레 로스다 배당에 투구 말이게 짠딩에 투구 말에서 당보건에 배파 까네 모여에 직상당이 버들 다 지록 빌레 로스 지록스 이 지록 빌레 로스에 때려버데 아리다 전주금 뜻이다 차거한테.
So there is a form of laziness called gi lukbe lelo. And so this is a form of laziness where right from the get-go, we just decided in our mind that I cannot do it. I don't have the ability to do it, and I don't think I can do it. So it's like underestimating oneself. So that's the form of laziness, underestimating one's own ability and capability right from get-go.
So this is
the form of laziness where, we even don't start to make any effort and analyze, okay, do I have the ability or not? Or maybe can I cultivate the ability? No, it's just right from the beginning, it shuts down our mind, said that, no, I can't do it.
That is easy. That Shawa security level singing there. That drink young man sunny shaking sampe, that drink pay will Yaman drink you some sunny shaking, sunny human dunta human shaking, dunta human, dawa human, low human machine, those pa Shinjan Sheni. So secure do it, pay Shinjan Sheni, the Shiatalta, Shawa security levels.
And then there's another form of laziness in Tibetan called Chawa Chisha Gelelo. This is a laziness of procrastination. And we kind of we may recognize that, yes, I need to practice spirituality. But then I'm really busy today, so I'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow comes, then we just decide, well, anyway, this week is kind of busy, so I'll do next week. And then the next week comes like, oh, I don't know, somehow this month is kind of slow, so I'm going to do next month. And then the next month comes, well, somehow this year is just, not the right one. So I'm going to start next year. So just keeps on postponing one's practice, procrastinating, in that sense. So that is a form of laziness.
And that and it that halamtai, Maki Padre Tandu Sini, and this was a new number of a dreatai, Kijak Kabuchayum, Gaimbo.
So, what is wrong with that kind of a state of mind called laziness or procrastination is that, we keep on doing it so, often that we might never find a time in life to do spiritual practice properly. So then by the time, we realize, okay, we want to do it at the end of the life, and maybe even then we miss it. See, so that is the tragedy, of buying into, if you will, laziness or procrastination.
That's somebody. Shawang Yengelos, Shawang Yambala Chani, Dilla, and it's Jamba Shene, Pena, and Cindy Shawala Chani, Cindy Shawan Mato, and Chudre at the top, Majuna, Shawang Yen Chani, so Chudre at the land of Jetan, Lelos, Dose.
And then third form of laziness in Tibetan called Chawang Yenshenjilero. This is the form of laziness where, we may find ourselves doing a very busy in doing things, but it is because we are so attached to what we call worldly, activities. That we are so caught up with everyday activity and what we call the worldly activities, worldly as an opposite of spiritual activities, that we never find time to cultivate spirituality. So the way it is presented in Tibetan is like it's a form of laziness of being attached to what we call the frivolous activities.
Church law and that don't the law and that put the guys extraordinary law and that to see and so that's showing again the child Chabili long cigarettes.
So let's say one is the enthusiastic reader. How this laziness can kick in is like instead of reading, books on spirituality or such matters, one just spends so much time reading books about stories and fictions and all kind of stuff.
That then I get any reta. Church zungin of the Chani, but church number of Madruba ship, church zungin some shen, that church do cookies on the ship, church number of Madunata, they are Anita, showing in like Chappy looks on the channel.
And also, this form of laziness can also take subtle form where, we might think that, well, I'm doing practice. But basically what we're really doing is we attach to the external form of Dharma. We look like a Dharma practitioner. We look like practicing. We look kind of nice. But really it's a look good thing. So we are so attached to the external form that there's no substance to what we are doing. What we are really doing is not really necessarily Dharma. And so this laziness can take that kind of a subtle form where we feel like, okay, I'm a good practitioner, I'm following practice, but we are really just in form, not in substance.
That the one the so much tangy for the sound of tango, Chamalong Ran Zibi.
So including myself, that all of us need to understand these different forms of laziness so that we do not let ourselves being influenced by them, but rather, we would counteract these forms of laziness by generating enthusiastic effort, and so we become the master of, tackling these different forms of laziness, because we want to win over these forms of laziness. We do not want to be enslaved by these forms of laziness. So let me recapitulate the key points that I've been trying to explain today. That at the beginning I said, we must cultivate altruistic attitude, which is the extraordinary thought. We care more about others, and we seek enlightenment for the benefit of others. That kind of extraordinary thought, laksam or altruism, is essential for spiritual development.
That day told Hasam Yobas in Dumar, the Karigur Sena, on a Lam Labasun Yanetang, Lung Denus, Lam Labasun Yanet Jungle race are the Kumis.
As important as it is to cultivate that kind of extraordinary thought, altruism, bodhicitta, it's not enough in and of itself. We need to, study the three Buddhist canons, and we need to cultivate or practice the three higher trainings.
That did Karigur, the Lam Labasum Yane Sheba Shebala Kegores, the Sheba Shebala Lung Denus on the Jungle race, to some Shegores.
Study and practice go together in the sense that if we want to cultivate the three higher trainings, well, first we got to figure out what the three higher trainings are and how to cultivate them. This is where education is key. This is where listening to teaching is a key thing. It's through listening, through education, we learn about these three higher trainings, and then only then we can, cultivate them.
Some Shabala Cargos, Jundu, Junior, the Heaven, the Canon, so what they gave it.
So what is needed in the study and practice of three higher trainings is, cultivating enthusiastic effort consistently. So without that kind of enthusiastic effort and consistent application of that, it would rather be hard to listen to teaching on the Buddhist canons and also to cultivate the three higher trainings. So in order to able to have this constant flow of enthusiastic effort, we need to abandon the three types of laziness. So every day we need to kind of, generate this strong state of mind that I'm not going to let myself be kind of, goofed by the three types of laziness. I'm not going to let that happen. Where it all starts, as we say, is that we all, in our everyday life, we need to generate strong, beneficial state of mind for others. So this is where the altruism or bodhicitta, extraordinary thought, is a key, considering others as more important than self. So all these things I just talked about this morning is something I thought is really beneficial, and also we all need, including myself, I need to reflect on these matters, and you need to reflect on these matters. So that's why I shared, those thoughts. So when I said that we all need those things I just talked about, I don't mean like in a sense of like we need them as just to adorn ourselves like an ornament. We really need to cultivate them, within our minds. So I mean we literally need them, not just an ornament to put on, but to make the real substantive changes within ourselves.
Good.
No. No.
That causing something that. That something which is human saying.
That's not as can.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Some which is that causing that some Georgie. Do that in some which is double Kangasung, some which is kind of
can deem it Kazan Dibasons of Tangla Cherry, but Jason Sarwa, Gulashi, Sola, which is in the Madison. No.
No bottom, my Virginia, Chula Somse,
Bodhika Songsa, Mensa Song, the Panga Long Songsa Rogan. That JSM Ges, Kanda Church, but you said the Songsa Song, Gulashi, Solashi, because I didn't know.
Yeah, that's the.
No. Can you see something?
That's true.
Can Panga Long.
I'm upon the Gen Home Minister, take it. Ale Hindu.
No. No, Hindu Tons.
A cherry purchase.
No.
Good liking.
No.
Oh, so love this.
No.
What?
So now we are going to go back to where we left off in this wonderful Kadampa text called A Miscellaneous Collection of Kadampa Geshes Advices. And one of the things that really great Adisha remind us is, to be kind, to develop kindness towards others. Remember I told you that Adisha, when he met anybody, he would say that, have you been kind to others? Or be kind to others. That's his way of greeting and, communicating with others.
Good liking, so like the grace at that. Good like is a pen. Tandi Kang do that me, Jimatonga vision. Jimada in those and Tangaran, so that Ginibal Pubina, Karina, so any young Tavachini. A tea, Matati, Karasek, a woman do something rich in marriage. And then good heart, Takarina, me, yell around the Bejima of Tani, Tansuna, that Jimba linking the ship. No, take any good heart, Googles.
And so last time we talked about, a number of things that Adisha talked about, that we need to be humble, that we need to give victory to others, but take the loss for oneself, that we should not, carry on the air of like, okay, I have done this favor to you, okay, so that's what you're going to do to me. You don't have that kind of air, carry the air of having favored someone, and so just let go, the attachment or grasping, cultivate love for others, and know the limit of the worldly activities. Enough is enough. We need to set boundaries around things. Those are the things we talked about. Now the next one, Adish goes on to tell us that we have to be, the way he sounds is like, if we are the recipient of a gift or offering, by others, we should be appreciative of whatever they give to you. Be easily pleased. Don't be kind of don't be like a hardliner here. Just be appreciative of whatever gifts they give to you.
Same zani this evening. Yen Karan La Pen, Jocanda Pubin, Lansan Languor, Mado Tete, and Saint Chijmabra, Kanji, some moment don't do what they told.
So, here the expression is that if someone has done something wrong to us and maybe they just come and ask for forgiveness, we must, we should be easy to forgive them. That's we should not be like piggy, with the gifts. When somebody gives a gift, like, oh, what is this? No. Be appreciated, be easily pleased in that sense. And if someone say, I'm really sorry, the other day I did this to you, said this to you, so we should not become more kind of a tough and, show the attitude, but rather be like, okay, be forgiving. And as one of the things we talked about is related to this is like whether we are monk or lay people, we need to cultivate sense of contentment, be contented with what we have.
One last, Tai dingi bateri, jeda tarus, jikten la tres ta, reda ke ne ngamba thundi sa ngamba ta. That junkie or one. The tones I think you could travel over that.
No.
Did Nangishin. Maranso only Dictapal Traggers. Dictam be chill Traggers. You think about dress people dress the
no.
Dictapal dresses and any Dictam be Samba Curvata. The little Traggers.
And then Great Adisha goes on to say that, just as, animals run away from hunters, because their life is threatened. In the same way, we as spiritual practitioners should run away from our worldly attitudes and concerns. So we are not saying run away from people, but what we're saying is, we should run away from or distance ourselves from worldly concerns and attitudes.
아니 지름송에는 지름 멘티션의 연구도에서 안 컨트롤 된도 연구도 제베 멘티션 연구도 다시 얘기 봐도 레다게 아니 다 달라 딱 이제 노션이 딱 지셔봐 나 얘기하나 주셔 그랬어.
I think what Adish says is like, just as wild animals run away from hunters, that's a good kind of metaphor for spiritual practitioners. Because these wild animals, even though they are in the wilderness, so to speak, and maybe they're grazing on the meadow, or they're drinking water, or seems like a peaceful environment, but they always have to be vigilant. A part of their mind has to be vigilant if their life is in danger or not. If there are hunters around, if there are other animals, that could kill you. So they are always vigilant with a part of their mind as they're also enjoying their life. So we as practitioners have to have the same thing. We have to always introspect our mind that whether, we are breaking any vows and precepts or not, whether anger is going to pop up in our mind, whether some other form of delusion is going to kick in and disrupt us. So we have to, also watch our mind as we lead our life, so to speak, so like those animals. Just as the wild animals, when they spot a hunter, they really have to run as fast as they could, go away from the hunters. In the same way, we as Dharma practitioners, we really have to run away as further as possible from the 8 worldly concerns.
That dress is any big combat English pay Juya Maris in a same Tony did don't remember the Shabbat dressing the was.
Of course, the wild animals can literally and physically run away from the hunters. But in our case, we cannot physically run away from the 8 worldly concerns. But what we say is, in our state of mind, we need to, distance our state of mind from the 8 worldly concerns. So this is what we talk about, running away from 8 worldly concerns.
Monsieur Mapona, Cheba means that Tandik send Yagras. Me Ched Mapona, Ran Cheba Chagmaristan.
And the next, Adishak says that if we do not give off worldly concerns and activities, then we cannot be a Dharma practitioner.
Oh, yeah. Taya Monsieur Sitani, Maraz only Chud don't get the main machine. They Chud. Monsieur Silmaribit Maris. And Monsieur see at around Cheta Muntibi, Dam Shawatel and Monsieur Cheta Muntibi Shawatel and Monsieur. That Dylan Bango.
So the Tibetan word Miche literally means human activities or human phenomena. What does that really mean is that, of course, certain worldly activities may be accord with Dharma. Those are something, even if it's a worldly activity, if it is, it accords with Dharma principles and is supportive of that, that's a different story. But worldly activities, human beings, activities that humans engage in, if they contradict Dharma principles, that contradict our spiritual beliefs, then we need to stay away from them.
Well, that innovation. So nam ye mapona, Rajunga minus. Tangaranso Peggy, Nri, Chohiba, Dunju Chohita, Chohiba, the Garzette, Chohi, Dirani. Sonum Chohi, Sonum Yunga, Chogun Yunga, take a name was Arawa. What the day did them Madina and each Carse. Rajum means.
Can name which occurring in which saying in which
Tata.
6 Thomas. Ne, say,
Chogun English.
Chugers is a queer again.
I let Chogun. Chogun is a ne, Neta, Querta, Seta, a ne, and that in a chick that
and then Aditya goes on to say that we have to, this is especially for the monastics, the ordained practitioners, we call Rabjo monastics. He said that if monastics are not, if they don't abandon, I should say, 4 ways of life, which means adopting the simple way of life, then they are not monastics. So the simple ways of life, there are 4 of them. We're just missing one. One is like. So there are 4 things that monastics need to cultivate. That is, they have to, be contented with simple living. Means the simple, what called, say, roof over the head, simple clothing, basically their monastic robes, and simple food, and then they should love to engage in the study and practice and cultivate and do meditation. So those are the 4 things the monastics have to cultivate, and they should abandon the opposites of those 4 things. Living a very luxurious, life and so forth, complicated life. And if a monastic does not abide by those 4 things, then Atisha is saying you are not a monastic, person.
Ona tan deba mapana gelon minus. Re. Deba mapana tan deba se atele tan dire. Andere tan pena no. Deba lan dimba se tan de cha tan tenije te sesa mundi shota dombe mundi shota masuna. Te tan gelon mares.
And then Adisha goes on and said that if you don't abandon, literally translating deba means attachment or desire, then you are not a monk. So of course this includes attachment to sensual pleasures, which also include attachment to sexual activity. If those such attachments are not abandoned, then one cannot be a monk.
Yes. Tan de challenge Jimmy and the Japan de Chaying, Tan de Chattery Mango Yorba. The Chattens, that Dean and so of the regular Tagadashun Chicken Treaty, the bend the Chasseta, Zuchin the Chasset, Zumage and the Chatta Mango Yoris.
Of course, this is directly addressed to the monastics or the monks. So, of course, that would include abandoning, sexual activity, that form of attachment. Otherwise, attachment can take many different forms. It doesn't have to be that only. The, attachment to sensual pleasures, attachment that's related with the desire realm of existence, and so on. So there are many forms of attachment that we as spiritual practitioners need to abandon.
Voilà. Tai Tamadre, Connection. On a Shangi menace, Shangi Semba means that Shangi Semba is Sham the Hingi Yogur. That Sham the Hingi maybe Shangi Semba, Tai Chayamate, Mesumata.
And then Great Adisha goes on to say that if you don't have love and compassion, Maitri and Karuna, you cannot be a Bodhisattva. So as a matter of fact, we cannot think of a bodhisattva who does not have, great love and great compassion for sentient beings.
No. The chamber the Shamba chamber, the Shangi Samba and about the Shangi Samba and you share it to Google.
So here, love and compassion have to be understood as great love and great compassion. And to be a bodhisattva, one must have altruistic state of mind or bodhicitta. So those are the qualities that a bodhisattva must have.
That shawa mantuna gomchi means gomchi is in gomjing that gomchi chamber in. You think shawa matona shawa to don't go yet. The tomatuna gomchi mariskan.
And then Atisha says, you cannot be a great practitioner if you cannot give up, all worldly activities. So this is basically, if somebody is, very involved in worldly activities, then, that person cannot be a great meditator.
That's something that's someone that I think young is that. Oh, yeah. Shawa matona gomchi means that is a Tindi Sagas don't excuse her. Then Deva Macolgis, Depar Macolgis, Deval and Pen and Deva Deli Devin the Zuta to register Tanzula Chani, Tanzuka want Mandua Chiguris, Macolgis.
And then Atisha goes on to advise us that we must not, pursue sensual pleasures, the pleasures that we derive from the five sensual objects, form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. If we're attached to these sensual objects and the sensual pleasures they provide us, then we cannot, do our spiritual cultivation, properly.
Yeah, the Jason, Gandhi Marimang. I think one of the Montoya Chevres.
So the Maka means do not chase them.
Dornazeta, Dor Divinus Nata, Gumban Nanes, Shawa Mamma Warres, Chum Baji, Gomlas. Tali did Dornazeta, Dor dinner. Gumbala Nanes, Gumbala Nane and Karina, Socio Anita Jundinis, Nanes, Shawa Mamambars, Shawa Manguta, Gitim Shawal, Mangula Pay Chani, this Shawa Mangu Chiju American.
So, in short, Adisha tells them, the disciples, that being in solitude, or it could be understood being at monastery, or in other case, wherever we are, we must, focus on our spiritual cultivation and, without being distracted by, endless worldly activities.
That courage is and a tube by Gomlas, tube by Drubstas. Shawa Mamang Bashemba, Mangu Mavasheni, that Shawa Mang, that Shawa Manfication, children to be Shawa Chevresca.
So basically, Atisha is telling us that we really need to focus primarily on cultivating Dharma or spirituality and don't get too much involved in worldly activities.
This Shavina Nam Chivi says, Nam Yik Ran Chivi Copsus, Chivi Sense. So why is that? What's the purpose of doing that? He said, if we do that, then when the final end of the life comes around, then we will be able to die without regret. So in order to be able to face death without regret, it's important for us to focus primarily on spiritual cultivation and not to get involved in too many worldly activities. Kitobasuna, that's also Dingarva. Chu Dumni Chu, Yantaba Duni, Ding so Yelzani, Guy you talk in the any chess.
Just to bring what the Lamrim has got to say on this topic. The Lamrim, according to Lamrim, the best spiritual practitioners, they die very happily. When the death comes, it is like a time for them to celebrate, because they're so happy to face death. So those are the best practitioners. And if you are a mediocre practitioner, then when death comes around, you do not fear death. You can face death squarely and without fear. So not being afraid of death, it could be understood in two different ways. There could be people who are clueless about, what is death and what's happening, and about dharma and spirituality. So basically, they have no idea about how the karma works and functions and everything, and so they may not be afraid of death at all. But that's the stupid, that sense of not being afraid is basically coming out of stupidity, out of ignorance. There's nothing great about it. And then the worst kind of practitioners, tama, the last kind, as it put, then you may freak out at death, that basically death really scares you like anything, and you might even start to scratch, yourself, different parts, pull your hair, then now you basically could not handle it. So the important point that's being communicated through all these things is that those of us who take interest in spiritual practice, so we should do our best so that at the time of death, at least, we can face it without any regret. If we could die it happily, that would be the best, but if we couldn't even, enjoy the death, but we have no regret to die, so that's a great thing as well. So we should aim to be able to do that.
Ani again ani kadin sabguyate ke chimbo yimba kadin sagata jungo betoni mayin pe ani chö dumni rang chö dumni an dunghe da tenzo denghe da trai tabla jungo samita samba sheyate kita ke chimbo chires.
So what I want to say and conclude today's teaching is this, that we may not have real love, compassion, and bodhicitta in our mind, and as well as most of us don't, but at least we make efforts to cultivate them. So the amount of love, compassion, and altruism that exists in us are not really genuinely present in us, but it's more like the outcome of our efforts. We contrive them at least in our mind. So in the pursuit of the genuine love, compassion, and altruism, and so that we really started to care about others, and because these are the best ways to repay the kindness of other sentient beings, because repaying kindness could mean many things. You can buy things for others, but that, only is so limiting and covers so much ground. But the best way to repay the kindness of other sentient beings is to cultivate love and compassion for them and to strive for enlightened state for their benefit.
알아서 교육인식이 교육 자원을 되니 다게 교회에 말을 된다.
the chapter should much meant okay.
사다신도.
Chapter the dasani king chapter 9 the say.
알레요.
And again the miller long yet the person baking.
다들이 땡구요 아레스테 아니티 아니 트란스 뜻이는 땡 가르쳐 땡사티. 사야티 누구에?
the page do again.
아기 숨는.
Before we do dedication, I have two announcements to make. Basically, one, I'm re-announcing it, which is tomorrow, Monday, in the evening, there is no meditation, but Geshe is going to give refuge vows or precepts to those who would like to take them. So there could be new people who want to be initiated into Buddhist precepts, and so you will be receiving the refuge vows fresh, and maybe others who would like to restore their refuge precepts, so they are also welcome to that. So tomorrow evening at 7:30, Geshe is giving refuge precepts at the TDL monastery, so no meditation, regular. The second announcement I have is, some of you might have already heard about this, that a new, maybe we can call a Dharma movie has come up, which is called Milarepa. This is about the great 11th century Tibetan yogi Milarepa story. And it will be shown in Los Angeles on September 13th. I was told at Amphitheater across from Universal, whatever. Now you can see I haven't been to Universal for a long time, so that becomes whatever. You can get the ticket at, because that's limited information we got, so you can get the ticket at www.milarepamovie.com. So basically milarepamovie.com, so you might get more information about this movie. Okay. No.
당연한지 최신이시비 교육 자원을 되니 산지 템버를 보지 다 주의를 내봐도 야외 인업의 죄배 된시버 도만에서 그 개별 때문에 두지기도 담배 밀로 용하다. 아니 최지쇼 보면은 균디 샤워는 이전던 로바다. 이제 이제 감대다 이행도 뭐티비 그소사다 현이 tunjin도 소사다 매밀로 용하요.
Together we have accumulated merit, positive energy this morning, and we would like to dedicate our merit for the flourishing of Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness throughout the universe. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great holy masters, wherever they are in any part of the universe, live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual aspirations. May this and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality. In short, we dedicate our collective marriage for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration, and may we all reach complete enlightened state quickly.
If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again.